Hello again and welcome back to our course on Dreamweaver CC. You should by now have started Dreamweaver and you'll see something that probably looks something like this. Now I should warn you that if you're using a copy of Dreamweaver CC that somebody else has been using, it may actually look quite different from this because the whole Dreamweaver environment is very customizable. And as in this section we're going to look at the Dreamweaver workspace, I want to start by talking about the workspace and some aspects of its customization. Now very often when people start Dreamweaver courses they start telling you all about customization right at the start and expect you to be able to make decisions about what you want to be able to see and which of the tools you want close at hand. Now if you're completely new to Dreamweaver, I think that's probably a bit unreasonable because you need to use it for a while first before you can decide how you want to lay out the Dreamweaver workspace. So in this section I'm going to start to show you some aspects of the workspace, and then over time you'll find that you do customize it to suit your specific requirements. So let's start by looking at this welcome screen in the middle of the window here. Now I tend to use this welcome screen. I find it quite convenient and I'm going to tell you in just a moment what I use it for. But let's suppose that I don't want this to appear every time I start Dreamweaver. There's a little checkbox in the bottom left hand corner there, don't show again. Watch what happens if I check that checkbox. I get a warning, live view alert. To turn the welcome screen on, choose show welcome screen from the general category in the preferences dialog. I click on OK, that box is now checked. Just let me close and restart Dreamweaver. Now if you want to close Dreamweaver altogether, shut the program down, you've got a couple of options. One of them is to use the close button in the top right hand corner there for Windows. You can see the screen tip right up in the corner, close. Let me close Dreamweaver. And now I've reopened it again and look, no welcome screen. Now let's suppose that I decided that wasn't such a good idea after all. It talked about the preferences dialog. If you go up here on this menu bar at the top, I'll tell you more about that in a moment. Click on the edit menu. One of the options on the edit menu right at the bottom, one you'll be using a lot, is preferences. Preferences has a number of pages of preferences, and on the general category right at the top the very first item is show welcome screen. If I check that, click on apply, then click on close, it doesn't show the welcome screen now, but it will the next time I start Dreamweaver. This time I'm going to exit Dreamweaver in a different way. I'm going to go up to the file menu there and click on exit, the bottom item on the file menu, exit. That will also shut down Dreamweaver, and once again I'm going to start it up again. And there you are, I've got my welcome screen back. So let's take a look at the welcome screen. First of all, the features on it that I use the most are open a recent item and create new. Now even if you've never used Dreamweaver before, you've got no idea how you're going to use it. It works on the principle that sometimes you create new things like web pages, and sometimes you want to do work on things you've created before. So you're going to open a web page that you worked on before and perhaps do some more work on it. If you want to create a new something, you can choose from this list of things you might want to create new. So if I wanted to create new HTML, I click there, new CSS, and so on. If I wanted to open an existing whatever, HTML, CSS, etc., the most recently opened ones will be listed here under open a recent item. But my installation of Dreamweaver here is brand new. I've never opened anything on it, so the open a recent item list is empty. There is, however, an open button, and if I click on open, it takes me to a standard Windows browser, and from there I can browse my PC, my network, whatever else I can reach, to search for the file or files that I'm looking for. And they're the basic ways in which one might use the welcome screen. But in the short term, there are some other uses for the welcome screen, and I suggest you explore these yourself. For instance, if you look at top features on the right, there are some selected videos there that you may choose to watch. For instance, what's new in Dreamweaver? Takes you through to a very useful link to the Adobe TV site. And although the videos here are quite short, some of them are really pretty useful in terms of introductory and background information on various topics. Now, apart from the selected highlight topics there, if you click on More, that takes you through to Adobe Dreamweaver on Adobe TV and a list of available videos, each with links to further information. Now, in the lower part of the screen, you have a Getting Started link. That will take you through to further tutorials with links to both video tutorials and to information that you can download. Now, obviously I'm not going to go through a lot of these now. Some of them are quite basic, but they're also very useful, particularly when you're starting out. So I suggest you find some time to work your way through these. Some of them will probably help more later on when you've got the basics in place, but they were worth experimenting with. The New Features link there takes you through to primarily textual information about new features in Dreamweaver, and the Resources link takes you through to Dreamweaver Help, which we'll be looking at shortly. And then the final link on here, Adobe Dreamweaver CC, takes you back to that download trial page with, again, links that include things like system requirements and languages and related apps. Now, that's pretty much all I'm going to say about those other parts of the welcome screen. I'm going to leave you to explore those and follow those up yourself. Now, the next thing I'd like to look at is the menu bar. And on Windows, the menu bar is pretty straightforward. You've got the usual arrangement with menu items. Click on a menu item, a menu drops down. From that menu, there may be further flyout menus. And we will, of course, be looking at many menu options as we go through the course. In Windows, on the right, you have a sort of mini bar over here. They call it normally the application bar, which has a couple of specific commands on it. It has a workspace command where you can choose the workspace that you want to work in, and in fact you can define your own workspaces. Once you customize Dreamweaver to your own requirements, you can create your own workspace or workspaces, and the reason for having many is that you can use different workspaces in different situations. To the right there is a sync status button, and when you are syncing, you'll find out what syncing is later on. That will indicate status. And then to the right of that there's a little I button, which if I click the I now, you'll see it takes you through to, in this case, the Dreamweaver Developer Center. More on that later as well. Now, the menu bar is one of the areas where there is a difference between Windows and Mac, because on a Mac you actually have a second menu bar below the main menu bar at the top, and the workspace button and the sync status button appear down on that menu, the one below the top one. Also on the Mac, to the left of the file option on the menu, there is an additional option. It's a Dreamweaver option, and on that Dreamweaver menu option you have things including access to keyboard shortcuts and preferences. So it's a little bit rearranged on a Mac, but you'll soon find your way around it. Now, the next thing I want to do is to look at one of those menu options. And the one I want to look at is Window. If I click on Window, you'll see a list of items. Some of them are in normal font, and some of them are grayed out. Now, as usual with a menu, when things are grayed out, you can't actually do those things. For the things that aren't grayed out, you can. Now, I want you to look at the whole screen while I click on the top option there, the one that says Insert. It's currently checked. Watch what happens if I uncheck it. What happens is something on the right disappeared and the thing below it moved up to fill the space that it left behind. Let me just switch it on again. Now in fact what we have there on the right is a panel, and that panel can actually be moved around. Now I'm not going to get totally absorbed with panels at the moment. I am later on, but not now. But there are certain things that you can move around. And also if I grabbed this part, the part below it, I could move that around as well. I can separate that into two panels, and in fact I can hide one or both of those panels. Now that's something I'm going to show you how to do later on, but there's one other panel right down at the bottom, properties. I'm going to hide that as well. Now many of the objects that you see in the Dreamweaver workspace are objects that can float, you can move them around, and that you can either show or hide. You would be pretty unwise to hide the menu bar at the top because it might cause you some problems, but you'll find over a period of time that you choose which of those panels you want to be able to show and hide. I'm going to come back to the panels later on. Now in order to look at most of the other workspace settings in Dreamweaver CC, we're going to need to start to create something, and in fact in the next section we're going to create our first web page. But I would like to give you something to do now, just so you can start to do a few things for yourself. And what I want you to do is to create a very straightforward custom workspace. Now I really don't mind what you put in this workspace, but I'm going to click there on the drop down to the right of that workspace button there, say new workspace. I'm going to call this workspace Toby 1, I think. Click on OK. This is now the Toby 1 workspace. Note what it says up there on the button. Now I'm going to open a couple of panels. I'm going to put the Files panel over there and the Assets panel over there. Then I'm going to say Save Current. So Toby 1 now has those two in it. Now let's go back to the one I started with. Let's go Compact. That was the one I had at the start. It was empty. Let's try Toby 1 again. There's Toby 1. Let's try Expanded. Haven't looked at Expanded yet, but that's what Expanded looked like. Let's try Toby 1 again, and so on. Now, it's a good idea as we're going through particularly the earlier stages of the course to get used to that idea of creating your own workspaces. You can have more than one, of course, and then it makes it really straightforward to switch between them. They're actually going to be a lot more use once we start creating web pages and so on. But it's good to get used to creating and maintaining your own workspaces. Now, if with Toby 1 I decided that in fact I wanted another panel, supposing I want the CSS designer panel as well, let's suppose I want to just stick it in the middle there, say, all I need to do at any stage is save current again, and that's effectively updated Toby 1 for me. And again, if I went back, say, to the expanded workspace and then went to Toby 1 again, it would have all three there. So just set up your own little workspace like that. That's the end of this section. I'll see you in the next one.